when you're in hostel, you can just wear what you want, do what you want, say what you want. The freedom in a women's hostel, when you're not conscious at all of any gaze or anything, and you just let your hair down and be yourselves.
You know, I've had like a release before, and I was just telling these guys at lunch, like these same people never messaged me before. They're like, Neha, you did something right.
You have to bear this up. If you were a Delhi girl traveling by bus and that is what you would travel by, you would know that it's going to happen to you. You will stand like this, but still they'll get there. Where will you put all your arms?
I can't remember the last time that a man walked up to me and said, "What is this rubbish FOMO shots, please?" You know, they've always loved it. It gives them a peek into, you know, the way the other side thinks and lives and is.
Welcome to India Today. I have with me the team of Ziddi Girls. Tell me, how's the feedback been? It's been 2 days since the show dropped. What are you guys been receiving, the messages, the kind of messages?
It's been fabulous, actually. It's been
Yeah,
very
phones
warm,
have
very
blown
uplifting.
up with just message after message across the board, gender, age, people we know, people we don't know, just loving it, and binge watching.
Full of emotion.
And it's very surprisingly like a whole range of people who I've never heard from before are suddenly saying, you know, I've had like a release before, and I was just telling these guys at lunch, like these same people never messaged me before. They're like, Neha, you did something right. So it's been fun.
Yeah, but I was just telling Vasant that how the trailer reminded me so much about my college days. Tell me, how much did you guys put in your memories into the script, into the show?
Completely. I mean, I think we had every stage that everybody joined, I was kind of first off the ground on this project after Rangita and Ishita just said that, you know, go ahead and, you know, be the person who builds this from the start. And the first place I had to really look at was, I think, my own life in St. Stephen's College. And I think that because I thought that, okay, there's a show, if it's set in an all-girls college, there will be professors, there will be students, of course. So I started talking up to people, not just young people, but I spoke to people who I thought would be references for teachers and professors as well. But, you know, what started emerging was that everybody's time in college always spoke of certain themes. And I think that theme which very quickly got identified was the formation of an identity. And I think that also another thing was that I just recalled suddenly that how suddenly after my second year, I had let my hair grow. I'd started wearing kurta pajama. And, you know, I mean, my family just kind of indulged me. But I realized I experimented with this identity. Then I discarded it also. Then I tried something else on. And I said, this is it. The license to try and be a few people before you feel that, you're okay, now I found. So I think that this vibed with all of us when we started collaborating with each other. We started talking about our identities, our narratives of self-discovery and formation. And, you know, between men and women, I mean, it was just human beings discovering who they are, right? So I feel that, you know, and I feel very blessed that it was a set of 5 young female protagonists, because I'm a dad, I have 2 little girls who are turning 11. So for me, it was the curiosity of, you know, where will my girls be in some years? And then, of course, on its own, it was just a fascinating journey. So yes, it started from personal experience, but I think that it went on to the lived experience of girls now. Very organic and dynamic process.
Amazing. And Shonali, because you've been to an all-girls school and then college, tell me about the importance of sisterhood while growing up.
You know, and in between I went to co-ed, so it's interesting because you see that difference, because I'm the Loretta House, as I was telling you, till class 8. Then I came to Bombay, Jamna Bai, and the first thing in the canteen, they were throwing chapatis at each other, and it's just wild, and it was just so scary. And then I was in the Lawrence School, Sanar, and girls and boys are kissing and all that. And then I went to MH. And till December, we joined in September, I was very unhappy and I wanted to come to Bombay to Xavier's, and I kept telling my mother. Now, my mother is a Mirandian and she says, no, just stay till December. Just stay, and then I promise you I'll shift you to Xavier's if you're not happy. And that is when, like, there was in December when I came home for holidays, like, no way, don't you dare take me out. What I loved is when you're in hostel, you can just wear what you want, do what you want, say what you want. The freedom in a women's hostel, when you're not conscious at all of any gaze or anything, and you just let your hair down and be yourselves, and the bonds that you form. I think even today, like, I have some special close friends, and Vasant is new on that list as a very, very special, very up there with my women friends, but they are less than my women friends and my relationship with women. That is what is everything in my life. Like, that relationship is something very, very special. And you get the opportunity of that when you're in an all-girls school or college, I think. And just the freedom to just be you, you know, comes from there.
Right. And Rangita, do you get calls from men saying that हमारी story क्यों नहीं बना रहे हो?
You know, I actually have, and we are actually doing something called Undateables, which is about 4 men. You know,
super.
because I want to take on that challenge to be able to tell an authentic male story.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean that really is what's driving us on that one. But I think as storytellers, we have to be able to wear multiple hats and tell different stories. And as long as they come from a place of wanting to tell an authentic story, it'll always be fun to listen and watch, you know, as simple as that.
But tell me about the beauty of telling stories of women from FOMO shorts to now Ziddi Girls.
You know, the beauty is that there haven't been too many told. You know, women have always been on the fringes of the stories that we have told. So for the very first time, and yes, parallel cinema has done more pieces across women, but for the very first time, we're telling stories about women without sloganeering. You know, about them just searching for identity, fighting loneliness, falling in love, just not making it normal, making it natural, making them the heroes of the piece rather than the participants or the companions, you know. And there's a joy to that. Also, I think what I've successfully been able to do is also champion a lot of women behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And therefore, our sets are just the most wonderful places to be in, you know. The kind of liberty she's talking about, you know, when you're in an all-girls college. Of course, Vito did that even in co-eds. I've only been in co-eds. But, you know, you just have a really, really holistic space where everybody is really, really uplifting the other. I mean, there's a fair amount of competition, you know, but there's also a lot of just coming together, you know, to do the piece.
And Neha, tell me, of course, when you're doing something of people of your age, it becomes easier to go back and kind of make a show on college students. How was it like? Did you go back to your times, or it was merely an imagination of how things would be today in college?
Actually, no, it was a combination of both, because when I came on board, Vasant had already done a whole bunch of like research and gone to Delhi University, spent a lot of time, and it had been almost like less than actually, about 15 years since I'd graduated, I think, from LSR in Delhi University, and much lesser time since I'd come out of FTI in Pune. So there was still some, like, I was close to it. I was not very far from it. But yet, I think earlier it used to be like a generation was 10, 15 years. Now a generation is like 3, 4, 5 years. So you're very far from them. Like, you cannot think that as a millennial in 90s, 80s, you'd know anything about this generation. So there was already a foundation, a base structure, which Vasant had already built in terms of the world and the characters. And I think for me, the lived experiences came in because of digging deep into my experiences between these two colleges. Those experiences fueled the writing in a way that felt like, "Arey, kuch badla hi nahi hai. It's still the same." Because, you know, your means have changed. You know, you're no longer writing letters or, you know, doing trunk calls or whatever, but you're on the phone or social media. But actually, human experience, if you look at it from a larger lens, philosophically, remains the same.
Absolutely.
Which is possibly why Shonali resonates with it, or her aunt resonates with it, or somebody else's mom or dad resonate with it, and they're messaging us saying, "Oh my God, we relate to it," is maybe why that the human experience doesn't change.
Absolutely.
And that time in college, you're like clay. So you're forming. And your identity, like Vasant was saying, is forming.
Absolutely.
Or what Rangita was saying, that, you know, you're sort of grasping at, मैं क्या बन सकती हूँ, क्या बन सकता हूँ, you know. And I think that is why everyone feels so, and I felt so deeply connected to this story.
Absolutely.
That it didn't feel like it was something external. It felt mine.
It doesn't feel like work either.
At all, ever. Yeah.
Amazing.
You know,
Shonali- yeah.
so go ahead.
No, please, please.
No, what were you going to ask? And I'll try and combine it.
No, that's a different question.
So,
I
you know,
think.
one thing is all the things that are wonderful and your coming of age and that hasn't changed across time, right? Which is fantastic. And that's why even you resonated, you felt reminded of your
Yeah.
college. But I want to say an uncomfortable thing. And that's one of the things that really hit me when I read it, which is to me really sad, painful, and shocking that it hasn't changed. And it's very specific to women's colleges only, right? So this was my experience. And this is what, as we were shooting, as they were writing, repeatedly we saw it happening in women's colleges. So in Miranda House, specifically, when I was in college, during our festival, when we would have our festival, what would happen is that's the only time men are allowed in to the campus.
Yeah.
So my experience was, as a first-year student, or I think may have been in second year, I was walking through my auditorium and we had taken precautions to make sure that no molestation can happen. We had police parked all around and everything because we knew that this would happen. Now I'm walking down the corridor to the stage to announce the debating competition and a guy grabbed both my breasts and pressed hard.
Oh my God.
And I immediately caught him and I handed him to the cop and I said, "Isko phek to yahan se." Okay? And I was gutsy and I was brave and I yelled about it and I made a huge fuss about it. We took the decision to shut down the festival right there and then. And we then got reports that about 250 other young women who didn't have the daringness to just be like, "Oh my God, this guy is, how dare he touch my breast?" Like, you can't even say that.
Absolutely.
And the principal of the college called me. She was a traditional principal, to say, "What were you wearing?" And she said, "I won't give you your character certificate."
Oh my God.
Why? Because I made it a huge issue. Our college shut down the festival. We marched through Delhi University campus.
Yeah.
Every single college marched with us, except St. Stephen's, because they used to stay behind their gates and not come out in the 1980s, actually. Every college marched to the Vice Chancellor's office, and it was made a huge issue. And at that time then, what was called eve-teasing cells, I hate that
Right.
word, but cells were put into every women's college and into the DUSU specials, which is the youth specials that
yes,
you would, day
the
scholars
buses.
would come, because you would get on a Delhi bus and you just took it for granted that you have to bear this up.
Yeah.
If you were a Delhi girl traveling by bus and that is what you would travel by, you would know that it's going to happen to you. You will stand like this, but still they'll get there. Where will you put all your arms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Now the fact that this happened in 1980s to me in a women's college, and that today here's a show written about it, based on young women talking about it, and while we are making the show, we watched it. We watched barricades being broken, young men climbing over walls and doing these kinds of things, right? This to me is also something we can't shy away from talking about.
Absolutely.
That this is also something that hasn't changed. How come it hasn't changed?
Yeah.
Why hasn't it changed? Look how regressive. So that's also something that is in the show that I experienced in the 1980s. 40 years later, young women are still experiencing
Right.
it. Not just in Miranda House, across women's colleges they're
Absolutely.
experiencing
Because
it.
I guess when we were writing, we were not writing it from the point of view of a particular
Yeah.
college. Right? We are talking
Absolutely.
about our lived experiences, and we have not been to Miranda.
Yeah.
He's been to St. Stephen's, I've been to LSR or wherever else. And I feel like when we were writing it, it is coming from like a collective consciousness basically and personal experience. So the experience she's talking about, like we haven't even met her by that point, but we've written it and then she's resonating with it, goes to basically say कि यार कुछ नहीं बदला है और क्या बदल सकता है. I think that is possibly the question.
And when a content is so personal, tell me, when there's a section of people who are protesting against it, even before watching it, how do you as creators feel about it and how do you deal with that?
Well,
Why
personally, it was a lot. It was on me because as the alarm, because it was the protests were from coming out of Miranda House, and it was that they felt betrayed by me. So it was utterly heartbreaking, and I definitely wept. But at the same time, I didn't judge them, and nor do I judge them. I feel empathy because the young women are coming from very small parts of India across the board, that it's great that they can come to a place like Delhi University and study. And so it's a different context. And I think the trailer was just taken out of context, and many a time I feel people didn't even watch it through, and they just reacted to an incendiary remark, which is not our show, which is actually an antagonist. It is not what we are saying, but often people, we are just so used to, in today's day and age,
To react.
People just want to react to something and boycott it, you see. And all one could say is just like, I
Watch
haven't
the
let
show.
you down. Please watch the show.
Yeah.
And this is what is amazing to me, because just across the board, I have been just inundated with messages, because I specifically reached out, because what had happened is, because we shot there, we made an effort that I only said that I would want that as many of our quote unquote extras, like, you know, we should cast MH girls. Let's cast the MH girls. And they were so excited about that, right? And then they've not watched it and they're feeling like, we trusted her. Like, because I was hearing from, say, the president of the Drama Society. She's like, ma'am, I'm not reacting like that, but it is like that. You know, it was heartbreaking for me. And I would keep saying, tell them.
Right.
And they have had the honesty to watch it. She has come back and said the majority of the college have really, really loved the show. You know, there'll always be some minority who want to not back down from a position they took. Maybe that'll be there. There's the hilariousness of real, you know, script coming to life.
Because we've been at it for 6 years. You're writing something with so much authenticity and love, and also just genuine respect for where you come from,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you want to be authentic, truthful, empathetic, and so we've also ended up feeling like, Arey, please watch the show. To everybody, watch it. Watch it, watch it.
But
And,
Rangita, I also wanted to ask you, when you make something for women or support women, is it a feminist show? People start assuming that it's hating men out there.
Arey, nahi.
Tell me about it, because you've of course made content on women. How do you kind of react to that, and how would
I
you
think
like
go
to kind
past
of
it? You know, there are men and there are men. There are all kinds in the world, and the ones who have to object will always object.
Yeah.
Will always have a thing or two to say. But for the large part of it, anything that I've made which has had a woman lead, including Rat Rani in Modern Love, they've just always been accepted by men in a beautiful, warm way. I mean, I can't remember the last time that a man walked up to me and said, "What is this rubbish FOMO shots, please?"
Yeah.
No, they've always loved it. It gives them a peek into, you know, the way the other side thinks and lives and is.
Absolutely.
And that's always positive.
Yeah.
But one or two voices, though, you'll always have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vasant, I also wanted to ask you, I was recently watching an interview of Shreya Ghoshal. She was saying how lyrics in our songs are written by male lyricists, and they assume and kind of imagine what a woman must be feeling. When you are, of course, working on a project like this, we all talk about the female gaze, but tell me about your own, how do you go about writing stories for women characters?
With curiosity.
Yeah.
I mean, that great line in a show that I really like is that, you know, don't judge, be curious. So, you know, my training is in research, the academics that I've done. I think, you know, photography is a way in which I connect with places which I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I've developed my own ways to engage. I think sitting down and having a conversation with somebody that's led with curiosity is always revelatory.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that after that you have to go with your feeling. Is it feeling true? Is it feeling like it's going to create value? So, you know, it's I fortunately or unfortunately, I've never been inhibited by my limitations in a particular field, because I know that curiosity will only help me bridge the gap. And I feel I learn from these lovely people next to me is that, you know, sometimes you have to be brave to take a step towards your curiosity, and I feel very inspired
Amazing.
by my collaborators, because it's not always easy. Sometimes it shines a light on you and it's uncomfortable, but it's great, it's growth. And I think that if we can then lead into writing stories with that approach, those stories will lead to growth.
Yeah.
You know, so it's worth it. There's such a long chain of causality and value, which always tells me that it's worth the risk. Our show has this line, "Ab abhivyakti ke khatre uthane hi honge," and you know, we've been speaking about identity and, you know, and politics being things that what you stand for.
Absolutely.
You know, and what you stand for, you have to stand up for. And I think that doing this show has just taught me that value and has encouraged me to to always keep taking steps in that direction. So I think that's how I approach it.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you, the Gen Z is often, it's a debatable situation where a lot of people feel that they are self-centered, they are unprofessional, and then there are people who say they have clarity of what they want to do in life. Because you were working with the new generation, tell me, what is the major differences that you saw, and is there something that we can actually learn from them?
I mean, I would say there's no difference whatsoever. We were as selfish, we were as self-involved, we were as ambitious, also lacking in ambition at different points.
Yeah.
I think generations pretty much ape each other in many ways, but what's different is that they're just exposed to so much more at a really early stage.
Absolutely.
Which is something, I mean, I think the kind of exposure that I had at 30, they have at 13.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that is bound to shape you. You know, that's bound to have an influence on the way you think, or react, everything. So the world has changed around you, you know, I mean, you can hang on to our generation, but I think they're actually privileged that they have all of this, but it's also a burden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I think the social media I have found for this generation is actually a source of deep trauma because certainly for actors, like their pictures are looked at, so you can't really be your authentic self. When we are able to be our authentic self and we believe in authenticity, I know for a fact in casting that their social media pages are looked at, right? Leave that. Then for them, and we have a character like that where she needs the likes, she needs the likes, she's a social media influencer, she wants to be. It is just really painful because you feel your whole self-esteem, your whole world, who you are, or your FOMO,
Validation,
everything is to do with that, right? And you have to detox and have the courage to just be, okay, I won't be on these apps, I just won't look at my phone to be able to, and if you aren't able to, then you just get caught in that vortex, which is painful. And that is not something any of us experienced in prior generations.
But on the other hand, social media, you know, I can send a comment to Donald Trump today.
Right.
Where else would that be possible? So it's kind of, it works in both ways. It has its strengths and its weaknesses.
No,
like
I'm not
everything.
criticizing social media. I'm just saying that
The
how the
validation
young
that they
people,
seek.
they seek that validation, and you have to be able to just, you know,
Look,
not care
have
about
the
that.
maturity to be able to look past it, because I think it's all about the gaze, right? Like I think social media is about the gaze. You're being looked at as an
absolutely.
18, 19-year-old who doesn't yet, or 16, 12, 13-year-old who doesn't yet have the skill set or emotional maturity to be able to separate one from the other.
Absolutely.
A good comment from a bad, and can deeply, like if a friend when you're young says something bad to you, you carry that hurt for so many years, and you're like, oh, I don't look good because somebody said she's ugly. And imagine if somebody online, like it does with the character, says that, oh, you are ugly, for example, to a boy or a girl, both.
Right.
You don't yet have the skill set to deal with that. Parents try their best to give you that, or teachers do, but it's very hard. So I feel like
you feel publicly humiliated.
yes, and then you carry that and to deal with that, and especially as actors, because you asked about our show and there's so many young actors, it's not easy. And whether you're on it, and then if you're not on it, then you don't get work, but if you're on it, you're constantly being looked at all times. We had lots of time of not being looked at, which is, I think, a privilege.
It's a lot of anxiety that they deal with. There's layers and
This
layers.
generation has the most anxiety actually of any generation, and suicidal.
It's also your mobile phones, right? I mean, I'm
that's
grateful
what I'm
that I
saying.
grew up without mobile phones.
That's
That is
absolutely,
what
it's
is
all
good.
connected to the
Yeah,
phone. WhatsApps and these things, it's sad.
Thank you so much for this insightful
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful,
Very
really
lovely.
a lovely
Really
conversation.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Conversation.